the gate of pride. We said last week that this is not about perfection, but this is about completion, a work in progress. We use the analogy of the gate that we're walking through. Many times the author of this book will say, and this character trait is the most important character trait. He'll say that a lot of times, similar to the way, like I said, like I say, this is my most exciting, this is my best line in the Torah. This is my favorite line in the whole Torah. So just each time he's making like a different point. So we're going to continue from where we left off. And really, we left off at this point that he's talking about there's two different parts of where this pride can kind of come into a human being. He talks about how some of it can come in from the body and some of it can come in from the actions. And the place that he brings it up from the body is actually very, very interesting. He says, Geus ha'adam begufo yesh ba shnei chalakim. Where it comes, pride that comes from the body has two different forms. And he says, of course, we said last week, everything is in measurement. Everything always can either be good or bad. It has that. But he says over here, specifically the examples that he brings are the following. A person who in his head and in his throat is haughty. So that, and he brings different examples, that is coming from in the body where it's stemming from the mind. There's a certain mindset from the person. Oftentimes it's very interesting. I would have to speak to like any somatic specialists over here. I don't know. Oftentimes in the Torah, we see that haughtiness, gaiva, is oftentimes connected with the garon, this word of the throat, which is very interesting. Like I wonder, from a somatic perspective, I would wonder like, what has to do? We know that the neck, the throat, the oref, it's called in Hebrew, is the place of connection between the brain and the heart. So if you think about gaiva, if you think about this pride, and he's talking about it coming from the throat, you almost have to think about that connection of there's something in the brain, but it's also a feeling in the heart, and it's manifesting itself through the throat. The reason that speech is so powerful is because it's the way that we get our words out. It's the connection between the brain and the heart. Okay, so he says over here, when pride grows in a man's heart, it starts to rule over him. We said last week, from the crown of his skull to the sole of his foot. And then I want to bring the paragraph down to where he says this. He says that pride manifests itself in one's eyes. As it is written, haughty eyes, einayin ramos. What does this mean? Well, it also, we're going to discuss in 1 second, it also manifests itself in one's ears. And what he says over there is by not paying attention to the words of the poor or the unfortunate ones. It is manifest in one's nose. If when standing near the poor or upon entering their houses, they smell offensive to him. And it is even in his speech when he speaks impudently and with pride against the righteous. We're going to pause there for 1 second. I think this is such an important point. When we're thinking about where it shows up in our body, pride, we have to really think about these different areas. And I'm specifically thinking of a certain story. I think my brother-in-law told me this story, but of somebody who would always go in to learn. He would go into this Beit Midrash, and he would sit next to a very poor man who smelled. He had a very bad smell. And one time somebody asked him, how do you tolerate this man's smell? Like he's not clean, he's unkempt, he physically has a smell. He's very poor and he doesn't take good care of himself. And the man responded to him, I know that after 120, when I get to the next world, the smell that I'm going to smell is going to be the sweetest of smells that's going to carry me there. Me being able to tolerate him now in this world, that's nothing, because I know that he's going to have a sweet smell in the next world, and I will have gained a sweet smell from this mentality in the next world as well. I was so struck by this story. How many times We don't think about it. You smell something and you almost like make a flinch with your nose, or you look, we tend to like look down at something or someone, or, so he's saying the haughtiness can come through the nose. It's two things. It's both the smell that we're smelling, and is it something that we feel superior? He said specifically, when you walk into somebody's home, you ever walk into somebody's home and it's not the best smell for whatever reason, whether it smells like mothballs or it smells like something yucky that they've cooked, whatever it is. And then what's your reaction with your face? You scrunch up the nose. Somebody can just look at you from the window and they know you've just made a judgment and you felt haughty about the situation because it was unpleasant to you. So it's an awareness that even the nose, you understand? Like it's haughtiness through the nose. He then goes on to say, and I'm just curious, like, does that resonate with people? Yeah.
That takes so much to train yourself.
Yeah, well, there's be a lot of training over here. Lots of training. Yeah, it's a certain awareness. I mean, how many times am I guilty of that? For sure. But it's the first step with Musar is always the awareness first. It's always going to be the awareness.
That makes me think of surgeons who, they encounter all kinds of smells and they have to work through it.
Yeah. That's interesting. So if we could all be a surgeon, but yeah, I mean, it is, you could be standing next to somebody online, or you could be sitting next to somebody in a class or whatever it is on the airplane. Like the nose tells a whole story, and by us making that it's one thing to say like that smell is not so my taste. Like if somebody, let's say, wears a very, very strong perfume and you feel choked by it and you're feeling, this is a lot for me. Like I physically can't be next to this person. So you remove yourself. That's one thing. But for there to be a judgment, you hear the difference? For there to be a judgment of the smell and almost like a scrunching of the nose and like a looking down with the eyes at the same time, that's haughtiness. That's coming from a place of pride. That's coming from a place of I'm better than you. I can't deal with this smell. Okay. We had we were just in Israel now. So right outside of our hotel, it was the city. It was right on Yafo Street. And there were a few people who were there with their blankets and their bags of their food. And there was one moment where we passed by and Alana Garfield said to me, look over there, look what you see. And it was just a guy who clearly had just went to go buy lunch for this very poor man, an Israeli guy in jeans and like well-dressed. And he just like sat with him. He was just sitting next to this person who, let me tell you, there's no way he smelled good. Okay, let me just tell you, there's no way. And she said, like, look how beautiful that is, that he's taking his time and he didn't just drop off the sandwich. He's sitting there, he's making this connection. So that takes a certain level of humility. It's not just kindness. It also takes a certain level of humility. He then moves it into speech, right? Even in his speech, when he speaks with certain pride. Okay, so now we have a huge topic, okay? Obviously, we know that within Judaism, there's so much focus that comes around evil speech, gossip, using our words for nothing, What? Lashon hara, exactly. We know that there's so much focus on that. Over here, he's specifically focusing on the speech that comes from a place of thinking that we're better. Coming from a place that we talk down to people. Can you go back into your beginning years of when you were getting trained into something, right? I don't know, when we were much younger, either our first job or even go back even to like, let's say BBYO days or like any sort of like high school position. Do you remember the difference between having somebody who spoke to you but spoke up to you versus somebody who came in with a certain level of haughtiness and spoke down to you? You almost can like remember their face. I can, right? Like you can remember like how they spoke to you differently. It's a different way of speaking to somebody when somebody is coming in, almost connecting to you as their equal rather than I'm here to teach you something. So that's coming from a place of pride. It also comes into how you're speaking to others about others. If we find ourselves, chit-chatting, again, separate from Lashon Hara. Lashon Hara, evil speech, okay, for sure. We're not doing that. But this is an awareness of, is it stemming from a place of inner pride? Like, I have a better than thou attitude. Where is that coming from? When I feel like I know something, or I know a piece of material, or I know something that I researched, that's wonderful. That's wonderful. And how it's going to be conveyed to another person is going to be absolutely critical. And this comes from a place of pride. It's a totally separate topic in terms of how we're using our speech. He's specifically bringing it into how the speech is used in terms of pride. He says it manifests itself in one's ears, right? Sometimes somebody can be talking and saying something and saying something and saying something, but because there's pride involved, we tend to be deaf. Even something as small as, like, you could say it with a child, but it's not only with a child. You could be sitting in a group of I witnessed this. I watched this happen, where you could be sitting in a group of women, men, a group of people, and someone is trying to say something and they're not heard because everybody else at the table seems to be louder. And when I say louder, I don't mean physically louder. It's louder. It's coming from a place of gava, a certain place of pride. And then at some point, somebody will go, oh, were you trying to say something? I'm so sorry. Okay, at least you notice now, but that's pride. That's coming from a place of pride. If we would all lower the inner volume, and we would all, and I'm talking to ladies, I just want to make this clear. I feel like every single class I have to make this disclaimer. I am talking to myself. I am not here to teach you things that I have aced. I am working on these things, okay? Very, very much so. But yes, it's very, very important. Even sometimes I'll notice, even in a conversation with my husband, let's say we're going for a walk around the block. I'm just talking. Hello? Like, that's pride. Shh. Like, lower the voice and open the ears. That's coming from a place. It's true that if you go into the 48 ways of wisdom that Pirkei Avot actually lie out for us, it does talk about the power of active listening. That's a wonderful trait to have. But what he's pointing out over here is that a lot of it stems from a place of pride. That's why it's the first sha'ar, the first gate to walk through. If we can rid this pride, if we can understand, which this is going to be the work of this chapter, if we can get to a place where we're not looking at ourselves that way, then the active listening becomes so much easier because the pride is already, like, you're coming in from a much more humble place. Okay, so those are all the parts of our body that it manifests itself. So it's through the way that the eyes that we're looking at, the ears that we're hearing through, the nose that we're smelling with, the neck, which just stems from like a certain, good posture is good, but the tall neck is where the Torah describes it, Any thoughts, any comments? Okay. So then he moves it into over here. This is very interesting. Pride can also be manifested in eating and in drinking and in clothing oneself ostentatiously dresses in. He actually says something very interesting. I'm not 100% sure. I wish I could ask him exactly what he meant. He says in Gentile apparel. I have my own idea after researching what this talks about, but let's just talk about what he's talking about before we even get into the Gentile piece. It's like a small piece. What does it mean that pride can be manifested in eating and in drinking? Let's start with that. What does that look like? Where's the pride in eating and in drinking?
Table manners.
Okay, what do you mean?
I mean, not eating with your hands if that's not appropriate.
Okay.
Paying attention to people around you.
So those are two different things. So first of all, not eating with your hands is almost like the opposite end of the spectrum. It's lack of pride. Right. Okay. If a person has no pride, that's when they're going to be eating disgustingly. They have no pride, right? Everything in this book is going to be about that measuring stick. Okay. And then you go to too much pride where, what was the second thing that you said?
Paying attention to people around you.
Okay, good. That's more what we were talking about, the listening piece.
We only drink wine from Napa Valley from 2000.
Okay, that's a great example. Okay, now again, there,
Wine glasses.
crystal wine glasses. Exactly. So again, this is not about teaching us to not care about fine things. This is about a certain attitude. Okay, if you can only eat a certain way. And you can never ever, we can never ever train ourselves. Like there might be times where like, you know, I'm going to have to because I'm with other people and I'm looking a certain way.
And it was
Then-
a bad year for Napa that
That's
year.
Yeah, there you go. Also, then there's a problem. Okay. Something that popped into my head when I read that is I've been to some events that were not kosher and they were very kind to bring me kosher food. But if you've ever noticed, and I hope you've never noticed, the way that they do it oftentimes is they make it almost impossible to open up without any attention because by the time you get to the bottom of what has been wrapped, you have now just created an entire, I mean, everybody's staring at you because you're like, you can hear a pin drop and then there I am like trying to unwrap with I'm like, forget it. I don't even want to eat, you know, like, thank you very much for trying. This is not, so I thought about that. Like, it's okay. You know what? If this is what it be, because this is what I need to eat right now, like, it's okay. Like, don't be so obviously I don't want to make a ruckus, but like, it's okay. Yes. That's not coming from a place of like, and the thought that like, which I've had before, like, why couldn't they figure something else out? Like that really, like that, it's okay. Like swallow it up. This is not about my pride. And if people are looking around and looking at my strange, you know, whatever, or if I'm in, I don't know, if I'm anywhere and I'm not able to eat the same food, you know? So if the pride is in check, so it's okay, you know? Yeah.
It's funny, the first thing that I thought of was, now, you know, yes, I like organic food sometimes, but there's sometimes that's, I literally have a friend who'll be like, well, are these organic? And I'm like, yes, they are.
No, but that's a great example.
Yeah,
That is
okay.
exactly right.
Sure, because you were coming over, that we had, you know, the special, you know, not like it was, you know, but that type of feeling.
So if there's an allergy or if there's a certain real sensitivity that her body is going to go into shock if she doesn't have her organic apple, so then I understand. But that's actually a really great example. Like let it go. Let it go when you're with other people that don't necessarily can't afford or aren't careful because it's just not with organics. It's a certain again. You have to realize that with Midos, everything you have to understand where it's coming from over here. You could have two different people, and one of them really, really does feel the difference it hurts them, you know. I don't know enough about organics, so I don't know. But and it's really coming from a place like it's going to affect them, you know.
Like it's a health issue.
Yeah, like it's a real health issue.
An allergy or something.
It's a health issue, but I think Susanna, I really appreciate that example because sometimes people have become so high in their heads that like, no, your non-organic food is not going to cut it for me, and that's haughtiness in what we eat. That's coming from it could be, I should say, it could be coming from a place of haughtiness. Yeah.
In terms of, and I've seen this both, like I try to be cognizant of it on myself, and I've seen it at different tables. When you're entertaining and you're the hostess, and people are complimenting, sometimes I've seen some people, oh, well, yes, I got this there and I put this in it and I made it that way, like kind of try to wait for them to ask you instead of. Instead of blurting out, you know, what you did, you know.
You're saying it could be coming from a place of pride, of too much pride, like thank you, and
right,
joy.
Ask,
Yeah.
sure, you go
right.
on.
So, ladies, these are all these are sensitivities. Like I want to make sure that we're not creating a space that suddenly people are leaving and suddenly feeling judged. Right? This is not. Nobody's pointing any fingers. It's just a matter of a certain awareness. You know, I think that's a great example, Debbie. Yeah.
Sometimes there's like with food, like a gluttony, if you will, where you're at a buffet and the person in front of you is like, it's like, really? There's like 53 others. Like, what do you know, what are you taking here, you know? And so, you know, we have to buffer ourselves and pay attention.
Kind of sharing that last bite of something that's on the platter, like, let everyone like see who wants it or offer to split it with someone. Not be the first up to grab. I mean, none of us are eaters like that, I'm sure, but you see, you know.
Speak for yourself.
Exactly. That's for sure. That's for sure a great example. So how it manifests itself in eating and in drinking. Okay, so the clothing piece is a very, very interesting piece. I'm going to skip around some of the things that he says over here, but I think this is the bottom line. When we think about the clothing that we're wearing, we want to think about why we're wearing these clothing. If the only reason is to give ourselves a certain status or a certain, like, now I'm wearing this, so now I could be friends with this person. If I don't wear this, I can't be friends with this person. Like, if that's the only reason, then we have to question if that's stemming from a place of pride, which would be misplaced pride, okay? The goal over here, it's so fascinating because in a world that we live in where I would say the majority of humans, I really do, I think the majority of humans are suffering from low confidence, from low self-esteem, stems from this place of like, we can put ourselves out in false ways. We can make ourselves feel better about ourselves because we look a certain way, act a certain way, hang out with certain people, eat certain foods, go to certain restaurants, only go to this spa or this club or this gym or whatever, fill in the blank. So with clothing, what he's really talking about is thinking about like the root behind what's going on behind. When I put this on, what is the reason for? Okay. And even, I think this even extends to not just clothing, but also makeup, the way that we're constantly trying to look. Is that for ourselves? Is that for other people? Thinking about what does it look like when I don't wear makeup? Like, I don't know. Yeah.
So I share experience about clothing.
Please.
I had an entire therapy session this morning on this topic.
Already this morning, get a full therapy session, Felicia. Yes.
But I shared
Let's hear.
personal experience, and I'll share my personal experience here because Facebook reminded me I did this 3 years ago.
Okay, let's
So I
hear.
have a therapist friend who is also cleans out people's closets as a side hustle. Okay. And she came over to my house and she spent 8 hours at my house with me and had me try on every piece of clothing I owned. And
Wait, I gotta hear the end of this story. Okay.
because she's a therapist,
Right.
she talked me through, and I think you all know I'm a therapist, the emotional connection of why I've held on to so many of these things. Okay, 12 bags left my house. 12 bags.
Wow.
Okay, I will not tell you what my husband said upon coming home. He totally felt bad. Okay,
He could have been thrilled.
my husband very funny. Well, he was thrilled, but he had a funny take on it.
Okay.
I'll share since we're recording this. I'll say it after.
I know, this is what I don't like your recording.
And you remember? I don't want anybody to think poorly of him for his
Yeah.
comment. But
Oh,
he talked
nice.
through the emotion of some of the older pieces
Yeah.
and why I was holding on to them.
Duh.
Things I had worn, but like the stories associated with them, like no time associated
Every
with
episode.
who I was with, like how I wore this dress to my grandmother's funeral, and like I was not gonna let go of it. I'm even getting emotional, like thinking about that, right? So Facebook reminded me of this happened 3 years ago, and it happened to be relevant today in my work. right?
Wow.
So on my drive here, I was thinking about, do I need to go back? And I actually have, I mean, I don't really leave the house for work now, but like I haven't bought much since then because
Wow.
now she's trained me, this friend, to think about why you buy something and what's the emotion behind buying a particular piece of clothing.
That.
And now if I go shopping, I really think about, why am I buying this?
You need.
Do I really need it? What is the purpose? I should just buy it because it's on sale, and what am I going to connect with this article of clothing?
Mm.
So it's like totally reshaped and it's saved me a lot of money.
Yeah.
Which is basically-
That probably.
But they also say if you don't wear it for a year, get
Well,
But yeah, but that's what she's saying about that whole like emotional piece.
so there was one, the last part of
Interesting.
clothing, I was not gonna tell her I still had.
Yeah.
Just for the- It is a sweater I had from college that has an odor to it. That this, it's
An odor or a scent?
scent. Because
Okay, an odor is like nasty.
This is more information than but then don't be naughty to and everybody in my sorority had the same sweater. We all had it.
Oh my gosh, I love that.
I'm sitting in a closet, like not in my room.
Oh, that's hilarious.
And I pull it out at the very end and I said, you cannot judge me for this. And we then FaceTime two of my college friends to consult with them about it.
They have theirs.
They
Wow.
had theirs. Like, you have to keep this.
Oh, okay, that's like your pact. Yeah.
And it's-
Or else you will be judged.
Bad. I think I'm back in the closet,
Oh.
still sitting there. Anyway, so I posted that on Facebook.
This is fascinating. I gotta try this one.
50 people from college comment that they all had the sweater.
It's adorable. Do you have yours?
So
I don't know anything.
it's very fresh in my mind about this emotional connection of what we wear. Even though I look like a schlub today, but like what we wear, why we wear it, and like our reason.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
That's my.
That's fascinating, Felicia. Thank you so much for sharing that.
Sweater next Tuesday.
All right, we're ready.
Yes.
We're ready for it. We're ready. We want to see it.
Okay, I will.
Exactly, if it has an odor.
Okay. No switching. Oh my gosh, I'm telling you.
The other side of the room.
It's so funny. Just watch it before you come. Do us a favor. Oh my gosh, that is so funny. So I think so. There's actually I'm fascinated by what you just said. I think that is such a fascinating thing.
You might. She's modern Orthodox, and
The woman who did it with you.
yeah, you might know her.
What's her name? Oh, you don't want to say it on? Okay, whatever. It's really cool. It's a really cool thing. It's a really cool thing. So from the emotional, so I don't think what Felicia's adding is like a whole nother dimension about like the emotional connection, all of those things. I mean, I remember my grandmother, oh my gosh, bless her heart and soul, but like she would save us things from like who knows when. I'm thinking like, Bubby, there's not a chance that I'm gonna wear this, but like it would come and it would sit in my closet and so the emotional connection piece, and then I would take it out and it would remind me of my Bubby and like all the things, but more about what is going on when I put this on. I think that is the awareness. That's the awareness that we want to be aware of. Now, listen, there's something to be said that when we put on something very expensive, we feel very expensive. You know what I'm saying? Like it makes sense that when you're going to put on a fur coat, you're going to feel different than when you throw on your $9.99. When you put on your fur coat. When you put it on, it makes sense that you're going to feel different. It makes sense because if you think about like what's going on, or especially if it was given to you by somebody that you loved, right? Like, right now loved you, it makes sense. But what he's saying over here is just beware of where it's coming from. And over here, what the he doesn't say it in these lines, but what the underlying message is that if we are so sure of who we are, then it doesn't make a difference. Like you can show, I mean, obviously, please always dress presentably and always dress nicely, please. But like the point is like, it shouldn't matter. Labels shouldn't matter. Cost shouldn't matter. If we really are like really, really worked on and confident in who we are, then it really shouldn't matter. So for some people, it's a taller goal than for others, but it is something to pay attention to. We had a whole, most of you are not going to really be able to relate to this, but let me pull you into the world of a bar mitzvah boy in the Orthodox circle. Okay. If he ever knows that this is recorded, I will be done. Hopefully he will never listen to this, but okay. So my adorable, delicious Simcha, who please God will be having his bar mitzvah this March. We'd love to have you all there. So the boys in our circles, they get these black hats, these adorable, cute little black hats. They're really exciting. Fill in the blank if your kids don't get a black hat. Maybe there's something else that you can understand when they become bar mitzvah, what this is. And with the black hat, there are many, many, many levels. They go from like the very cheap
Expensive.
all the way up to like the label.
Yeah.
They go all the way up. And so it has been already for the last 6 months, this has been an ongoing conversation because he wants
Right.
The label.
the label. He wants that. I don't even need to say the name of the company, but he wants that highest end within the framework of where this little 13-year-old black hat could be.
Right.
He wants that high one. And we are trying to explain to him why. Like, why do you want it? What is it? Not to mention, like, a lot of his friends don't even have it. Like, he got introduced to it at somewhere. I don't know. I got this like in his head. And we are trying to tell him it's not about the money. It's not even about the fact that it costs the extra amount of money. That's not the problem. It's a matter of, do you feel less of yourself because you're not wearing that one? And I just keep thinking, like, we haven't bought the hat yet, so I don't know where we're going to land. I don't know. And sometimes you have to know a child that if it's really, really going to be crushing to them, you do have to do the thing. So we'll see. I'm not claiming anything on here yet. We're in the process of it. No commitment. But I want, what I want for my child is to be able to fall into something that's not the highest and that he can still show up feeling just as proud that like, this is who he is and this is his hat and it's just as cool and swagger and like all the things without necessarily having the label. It's a tall order, especially for a 13-year-old. But this is, this is something that we're thinking about, So transfer it over into our world, our circles. And I myself, and sometimes I find myself guilty of this, it does. It feels good to put on a certain thing that makes you feel a certain way. Like just the awareness of where it's stemming from. And can I do without? Who am I dressing for? Who am I dressing for? It's one thing to dress to, show up for your husband, but to dress to show up to impress other people, you have to question that. Is that coming from a place of pride that needs to be put on the back burner? Any thoughts?
So this is such an interesting conversation for me personally, because my entire life, I never, ever dressed casual. It was a big joke at my wedding. It was a question on my husband's Jean aptitude test at a rehearsal dinner. If Jean was getting dressed for high school, what would she wear? And I was always in really nice clothes, or a suit, or never put on a pair of jeans in my life, ever. And it's only recently that I even throw on a pair of leggings. I mean, I'm going nowhere but here today.
And you're dressed.
And I'm in a dress.
Mm-hmm.
You do.
And for me, that was fake. For me, it's not so much label as it is confidence and being okay in my body. Never liked the way I looked. So I always dressed. This is Gap. Doesn't have to be Yves Saint Laurent, or something, but it's all about how you feel, not necessarily what the cost of it is.
Okay.
Makes sense?
So first of all, thank you for your vulnerability there. That was tremendous. And I think that there's so much to be said. There are programs. I don't know if you guys remember way back in the day. It was at the Ring House. So, and I did a program on dressing for success, and it was the colors and the palettes, and I tried to connect it to Judaism. I don't know if it was a really, really cool thing, and I'm forgetting the name of the woman who even invented the whole wheel, but
Somebody.
Yeah.
yes, Tuttle. Carol Tuttle, that was her name. So there is so much to be said about hachitzonius me'oreres es hapnimius, which means that the way that you feel externally is going to do something that's going to spark something internally, which is the classic example that if you're not feeling very joyful, you still put on a smile, right? If you're not feeling energetic, you go and you physically move your body. If you're not feeling very confident, then you put on clothing that make you look like you're confident, like a suit or something like that. So Judaism, actually, there is support for that. And at the same time, when we actually have to strip away, And it gets to the root of like, I don't know, like, do I really feel like a nothing, you know, when I don't have this stuff? So that's where it starts to become,
Right.
I don't even want to say a fine line. Like we have to really look at that and hold that and pull that apart. And it's I'm sure that everybody like has so much to share on this topic because it is such a, as women, it is such as women, as mothers, like it is such a huge topic. I could talk about this topic for at least 12 hours and I don't even necessarily know if I would come to like a full like level of like, oh, you know, but again, we're focusing on the pride piece. So, and obviously the more that a person is putting on a certain, when a person has to act out of pride, it means that the confidence is somewhat lacking, right? When a person is truly, truly, truly confident, then the pride, it goes down. Like you know, the people who are like the most unbelievable people and they just have a certain like, I don't know. It's just like you just think they're so unassuming. I guess that's the best word. Like they just seem unassuming because they're so comfortable with who they are. So I think, Jean, there's much to be said. And I don't think there's anything wrong with dressing that way so that you feel confident until you get to the part of like,
Why?
yeah, like I'm not sure I really like this. That's under all of this. And that part is the real work that really needs to be gone through. Yeah, Debbie.
Just always struggle with that. I love clothes.
Yeah, so do I.
Right, I know. And I was gonna say, I don't want to, we shouldn't feel shallow about it. I love the way you dress. I love coming to see what you're going to
Oh,
wear.
thank you.
No,
Yeah,
but
I do
mean
love
it.
clothing. Thank you.
There's something about you present yourself in such a pretty way. It's nice to look at.
Thank you. And that's why I'm saying I don't think that any of the message of this is please dress like a schlub.
Right. It's
But I think that if I'm only dressing, you know, Jean, to your credit, you said you always wore that no matter who you saw. I think that's to your credit. If you're only dressing up for the people that you see and the days that you're with nobody, you literally look like a schlump. So again, so you have to be able to question, like, what is that? You know, the very, very important thing for us to think about, like, does everybody outside of the home see me a certain way? And then the people that I care about inside of my own home, how are they even seeing me? Do I look like a schlump? Like, I don't know. Sometimes, I mean, this is a totally separate topic than this. This falls actually more into the category of like peace in the home and relationships. But like, we're so careful about like what we look like to that world. But like, by the time our husbands are coming home and seeing us, do we look like a rag? I mean, do we still look nice? Like, will I still be wearing these heels? I don't know, you know? At least my husband saw me in heels this morning. But like, that is a question that we want to ask, you know? Yeah.
Sometimes it's comfort in knowing ourselves and what we can attain through what we know about ourselves. I was the younger sister. When I was born, my parents, this is vulnerable. I was always dressed like my sister in the sister outfits. And she was way cuter because I had the hair that went out to here and whatever. And I'm a twin, or I was dressed as my brother. I never had my own identity. And I'm sure that's why I have become the colorful person that I
Purple
am.
and orange, yeah.
The care, the clothes, Devorah knows this because I just finished selling a house of 42 years. I had more clothes than you had.
She did. She did.
And there were things that I held on to and had to throw away. I had the negligee that my mother wore on her wedding night, and it was tattered and whatever. And I wanted to save it, but it was like, this is stupid. And I had conversation with myself. It's time to close the door on that and throw it away. But it was.
It's not easy.
It's
About the clothing, that is so important to you because you didn't have that.
I just have it.
I have the exact same thing.
Yeah.
Story.
Yeah.
I was a middle kid, always dressed like an older, younger sister.
My dad was an artist and he painted my portrait, and I'm wearing an outfit that I hated so much.
Oh, wow.
Because it was the ugly version of what my sister was wearing. The colors were so not flattering on me and the style. And I hated for years. He made me promise that I would take the portrait after he died. And I said, yes, of course I will. And I took it and it sat on the top of a cabinet in my house. And one day there was a pipe that burst and it flooded and I went down and I saved the painting, but I looked at it thinking, do I really want to save this?
Right.
This may be time when I can go, oh, it got ruined. There was nobody to answer to.
Well,
But it now hangs in my house.
thank you for sharing. Yeah.
Well, it goes back to the pride and the smell, and I'm
Yeah.
gonna ask you this question. So it's, no, you're great, fabulous. So in yoga class, okay, it's a hot yoga class, there happens to be somebody that very obviously doesn't wear deodorant, okay? Now,
There are people like that.
yes, but I think that's a choice that she's made for herself and her daughter, okay? So. And I go.
Look at all of us like,
You're like.
no, it's on fire. We're like,
Yeah, about her daughter. I think she's old enough that she's made this decision, it seems like also. The problem is that obviously. I'm not looking down on them because it seems to me that it's a choice. And that's the question. Is she really prideful that she's not wearing deodorant?
So that's interesting.
You know what I mean? So
Being natural.
she's not being
natural.
the face
right.
and to breathe in my. And I make my sister stand next to me in between us because I won't go next to
I'm
her.
sorry. This
So
is
it's so
hysterical.
like, and it's
Right.
And
But what you're saying is fascinating, like
Yeah.
meaning like, is she having a certain like pride that she's coming in with? I don't know what to say. Yeah.
Bomb next to me so that I can breathe.
Right,
You know, I mean,
right.
it's very interesting. Like, it's
That's
her.
part
It's
of this.
it's my.
People who try not to wear deodorant, it's a thing.
But that's what she's saying is that is she coming from a place of pride?
More of a whether if she's doing it because she wants to be natural and that's just the way that she is, and then it's not a prideful thing. But if she's doing it for a certain reaction, then it is sort of a prideful.
Yeah, there's also the awareness of the group. Like I had the same thought in my workout class because some women come in with coffee and I don't like to smell that while I'm working out and they're not drinking it in the class. And I'm always distracted thinking, why do they have to bring their coffee in here?
Mhm,
It's kind of the same.
So funny.
Coffee and sweat.
I mean, it's really early in the morning.
Yeah, she's working out. What time do you work out?
In a bar class at 6:15 in the
Oh wow.
morning.
For you.
And if I happen to be next to someone, I'm smelling it and I'm wondering the same.
I will switch.
She'll switch. She'll take the coffee. I don't know. You know, it's interesting because I was thinking about this, you know, like the kosher food thing and you could think about the opposite almost, like if somebody has like too much pride, like they're like proudly opening up their thing and they're like doing a whole like song and dance to show that they have their kosher meal.
Right.
The difference is which would not be appropriate.
Right.
But with a capital B, not even an and. But there is something within the framework of gaiva, of pride, that's called gaiva de b'kedusha, which means it's a haughty, holy. It's a holy, haughty, holy.
Yes.
I don't know which one to say. It's kedusha. Kedusha is something that is holy, meaning when it's something, and I'm not saying that she's holy, but it's something to think about. Like, where is it? This is why the intentionality behind it is so powerful.
But I'm saying the judgment, like I'm trying not to do the judgment in
Yeah.
the face or the
Yeah.
like, you know,
So
thing.
that's why I use the tiger bomb.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's right. I think that's it. I think the awareness of even just you come into that class and you're coming from a place of like, she has her thing, I have my thing, I don't want to be next to it. If a smell is not pleasant to you, he's not saying train your nose. He's not saying train your nose so that you can accept it. He's saying be careful of where it's coming from, you know? Be careful of where that stems and what are you thinking to yourself? I think, see, that's also like, are you thinking to yourself like, ew, that is so disgusting? Like, get with the program. Like, in what universe are you living that you think that you can't not wear deodorant to hot yoga? Like, that is so disgusting. Or if you come in with the awareness, even to this also with the coffee, like instead of like, guys, come on, like get your act together. Like that is so not appropriate. You come in with the place like, you know what? That's you. I'll do me. We won't sit right next to each other. Also for you, like maybe, I don't know if there's a way to remove yourself from that smell, but not like having that harsh judgment on it. Or for you, if the smell of the coffee really is bothering you, so maybe it's a conversation. So that each time you don't have to come into the class and literally be like, that is so ridiculous. Like, why are they coming in with their coffee? Like for them, that probably helps them get their jolt of energy that they move before the class. So you don't need that. But even just the awareness before, like that little like settling down of the mind is exactly what he's talking about.
It also relates to the collective versus individual that we talked about.
That is true. That is also
Deborah.
very, very true.
Deborah.
Could be a conversation
That we
with the
talked about
instructor.
before the break. Sorry, what was that?
You could have a conversation with the instructor who could
Right,
Like maybe keep it out. Yeah, like maybe keep it out. Exactly.
It's also interesting when you travel and you have different cultures.
Yes.
Who it's just a part of,
Yeah.
you know, their
Yeah.
culture that they only bathe a certain amount of time. And
If ever.
Or the foods they eat might sometimes,
yes, there's
Yeah.
there's that too, but a good reminder. So
Yes.
we were in Bolivia at like a crazy altitude and feeling sick as it were. And we're on, Remy showed me the teleferico, these cable cars. And we're in really tight quarter. And there was somebody, it was, my daughter-in-law was feeling nauseous as it were. And she was really, it was, I mean, it's so sad, like, I mean, now I'm like thinking about the language I should use to talk about it, but it was, I mean, the smell was so bad.
Right.
of this
So
one
it's not
person.
so Orchos Tzadikim is not telling you like don't be repulsed by a smell, accept the smell. But it's a matter of like, are we thinking like go get a life, you know, come on. Like, exactly. Are you starting to think disgusting of the people? It's about the judgment that goes on and where you're placing yourself in that. I remember in high school, we had girls, Bukharian girls who were also, they were coming from a totally different culture. None of them were. And I remember bringing it up with the principal and we were like, no, this is education. We need to teach these girls. Like this is, and we had real conversations about it. And like, we showed them which kinds of deodorants they should buy and like what smells we thought was good. And like for them in that role, like they probably are still thanking me till today, you know, like, thank you so much for teaching me this and having the courage to do that. But it's coming from a place of like societal norms and what I'm thinking, what like, if I was like so disgusted that I wouldn't even have that conversation and just let the whole year continue. And I was like, you know, ew, every time that they walk by.
Others about it.
Exactly. So you have so much of it has to do with like where the brain is. Okay. So the last thing I just want to say over here, and this is just an interesting thing that he says, take heed lest you be ensnared after them. And what he's really saying is just to think about, and again, this is coming from, it says in Vayikra, I have set you apart from the peoples. This is just another, it's like almost like an added in thing, you know. One of the things that we know, there were 3 things that kept us unique as a Jewish nation. Now we're reading about these stories now in the Torah portions, Shemot, Va'era, it's the whole story of the Exodus. But it says 3 things that really, really we held on to. And because of these things that we held on to, we still kept our identity as Jews. Does anybody remember what those 3 things were?
It's not Shlosha Devarim.
Nope.
The name.
So clothing, names,
And
language. And language, okay? Clothing, names, and language, which means that they didn't start to become all of the, you know, they kept their Jewish Hebrew names. They didn't start to take on the Egyptian names. They did not change their lavush. They did not change the way that they dressed to be like the Egyptians. And their language remained Lashon HaKodesh, which was the language of the Holy Tongue, which is not exactly modern day Hebrew, but it's the language from the Torah. That was the language that they spoke. You could look at that and you can just be like, huh? Like those 3 things, like that's what kept us surviving as a nation. But that's what he's pointing out here. He's pointing out that the clothing, that when it's coming from a place, it goes back to the root of like, where am I wanting to fit in? That's why he brings up this whole idea of like, he calls it Gentile, but fill in the blank with whatever. If you're only doing a certain thing just to fit in, at its core, there's a problem with pride, you know? People could look at the ultra Hasidim, and they look so different. They say there are certain places in New York that I like see that we don't really have them here so much, but you see them and you're like, huh? Like really? And you can make a negative comment about that. You can say something like, can't you just fit in? Can't you just dress like everybody else? And the answer is, do you want there to remain to be a strong identity, a strong Jewish, for them, Hasidic identity? Or do you want me to become a nobody? It's coming from a certain, and again, they have to be very careful with their pride. You know, when they're dressing like that, are they coming from a place of like too much pride that it's almost like shame on everybody else who's not dressing like that? But also recognize where our judgments are going on them. So if we're only dressing to fit into society, if that's the only goal of where it's stemming from, so then in actuality, the clothing themselves are flawed. Because it's not coming from a place of like, who am I? Who am I? I'm only a blend. I'm just trying to be one else. And sometimes that could be coming, what he's explaining over here, from a place of real pride. All I want to do is just have that status, have that name, have that reputation of just looking like them. So it's a very high level of awareness that he's asking us to be aware of. I'm going to just read this last line. He says, the proud are despicable in the eyes of Hashem. As it is written, the abomination of Hashem are all who are proud of heart. Very strong language. Do you understand? To'avas Hashem al givat lev. To'ava is an abomination. It's something that's literally looked at as disgusting. What it's saying over here is that, yes, why? Because we said last week, a person with so much ego who has literally either you could say edged God out or eased God out, whatever it is, there is so much me that there is no other place for God. And that has become something that is a toeva. That has become something that is literally disgusting to the Almighty. That is not what he wants. What he wants is for there to be much less so that everybody can be so much more, so that there's so much room for God, right? So that's where we'll end up with today. We are like the first page is. We still have like...
Will you repeat that?
Pride, gaiva, is the abomination of God. That's the way he says. To'avas Hashem, kol givah lev, that the abomination of Hashem are all who are proud of heart. So we will end off with that for today. Any comments or questions? Next week we'll try to make, next week there is no class, ladies.
Good.
Next week there is no class, some good, some bad.
Well,
For Tammy, she's finally in town and I won't be here. So I think it's just 1 week. I think it's 1 week, yeah. You're going home? So nice. Okay, hold on, I'm going to stop the recording here. So next week there is no class. I will send out a reminder. Either me or Jamie will send out a reminder just to remind you guys that we're back in action and no class next week. I will miss you all. It's my kids' winter break, which is why I scheduled that way from the beginning. Yeah.
7th and the 14th.
Devorah, I have something to add.